All right. What do you think of this music, Ashley?
I could get used to this one.
Okay.
It's pretty slick.
I like it.
Best one so far.
We've been playing a game where I play different intro music every week, and we try to find out what kind of music Ashley likes because she won't.
And
tell
she
us.
always hates it. She
And she
always hates it.
every song I've picked so far. So we're
You haven't
moving
played
in the
Usher
right
yet.
direction. All right. We have a very special guest tonight, Dr. Narine. Welcome to the show.
Thank you all for having me here today.
It's Narine.
I
It's
wrote
Narine.
I even wrote like a
Narine.
phonetic.
You know, Narine. I've been used to Narine my entire life, so I answer to Narine as well. But yeah, if we're going off what it's supposed to be called, it's Narine. Yes.
I wrote like a phonetical thing down. And
You
fire
did?
me,
okay.
please.
It's all right, buddy. Pleasure to meet you, John. Pleasure.
It's
Pleasure
nice
as
to
well.
meet you. I think it's cute you tried so hard, though. You should get points for that. He wrote it down, like he really did try. So
That's
I
really
think
cool.
That's better than
Yeah.
getting it right, almost.
I just don't know how to read.
Oh.
Wow.
So, Dr. Narine, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you here tonight?
Sure. So my name is John, for short, and for most of my life, I struggled with drugs and alcohol. I remember always feeling like I didn't belong or I didn't fit in. Like the more people tried to love me, my family tried to love me and accept me, the more I just pushed them away or, because I truly believed like that I was just unlovable, that I was just unwanted, and I tried to run away from that feeling the best that I could. I went to live across the country and stayed with some friends and tried to get sober, and that didn't work. And then I thought, let me go back and live with my parents and, see if I could fix things with them and try to get sober there, and that didn't work. And then the pandemic hit, and it hit everybody really hard. And, the news, so many news articles have written that alcohol sales went up, right? Drug use went up. Well, that was true for me as well. Everything hit the fan when the pandemic hit. And all of a sudden, I had to grow up quickly. I was about to lose everything. I had one of my dream jobs finally. I was about to lose that. I had an apartment. I was about to lose that. I had money in the bank for the first time. I was about to lose that, all because drugs and alcohol became the most important thing in my life. And I made a decision to give it all up and see what it could be like to put recovery first for the first time in my life. And I got sober. I went back to school, I graduated and got my doctorate. And I studied what are workplaces doing to help someone like me, right? Because I was that employee that, you know, went to happy hour with everyone on Friday, but did not show up to work on Monday. And when I showed up on Tuesday, it was not as productive as I would be by Thursday, you know? Um, and that was that cycle I was in all the time until I was just missing work for the full week, and I just wanted to know what were people doing to help someone like me, and how were they able to do that and stay productive, because
Right.
everyone was struggling to stay productive during COVID. So
Dude,
that
I can relate to that. I've been there where it was like, dude, I can't even be a decent employee anymore. What is going on with me?
right.
Well,
Right.
and there's this huge gap, like that a lot of people don't realize, that a lot of people in active addiction are actually working. It's, there's a stigma that it's the homeless population, but that's actually not the majority of people in active addiction. Most people are working and trying to manage, and you can't just quit your job and go to treatment all the time. Like, it'd be great if you could, but like, your families depend on you. So there's like this huge gap to be talking about it in the workplace is so important. I think it also puts like, there's this like, I'm a girl, so, we talk about this glass ceiling,
Yeah.
and stuff. So even in recovery, it's almost like a lot of people believe there's like a glass ceiling. You can only work in this field, or you can only do this because of your
Right.
past. By going and showing that recovery is possible in the workplace, that gives hope to others that there's options. They can have whatever life they want. It doesn't have to be in a certain field.
Right. So there's two statistics in regards to what you're saying. First is, out of everyone who is in active addiction, 75% of that population works, right? Is in the workforce. But if we're looking at the workforce itself, 1 in 12 workers are said to have an addiction, right? Whether that be alcoholism or substance use or whatever addiction it may be, that's 1 in 12 workers, and it doesn't discriminate to any particular industry, as you just mentioned, or any type of position within the company. This could be a frontline worker all the way up to a C-level executive. I worked in law firms for most of my life, and if you go into any attorney's office, there is usually a wine bottle or a hard liquor bottle just mounted on one of their shelves. It was really the culture of many of the places I worked in that drinking was the norm. Getting drunk with the client was the norm. Coming to work hungover was the norm. It's just that I started to experience consequences a little bit more than everybody else I worked with.
I think, we all have the consequences at different times. And so, I was in active addiction for 8 years. I probably didn't get really bad until the last, there's a couple times, but I worked the whole time and was functional. So there's a lot of people out there, and I'm going to ask a fun fact for Jason. Jason, what's the number one industry for substance use disorder?
I would almost venture to say restaurant industry, the service industry. No, then construction
industrial.
Construction.
Yep.
But
Why do you
dude,
think I
that's
asked
such
you?
a broad term, though, so that shouldn't even count.
And
That's so
CEOs
many
are
different.
twice as likely to have a substance use disorder than the average.
So many different
worker.
jobs fall under that category. The way that you worded it, though.
Well, you know why though? It's because men traditionally don't talk about their feelings. So numbing is common. Also, being away from home and stresses, and the work is hard on their bodies. So
yeah,
you should
lots of
see the amount
reasons
of
to self-medicate.
opiates. That if you look at the amount of opiates that are prescribed for people in the construction industry compared to the normal population, it's crazy.
Oh, I can believe that.
Yeah, Google it sometime.
Yeah, I think the stats are 1 in 6 workers there, or 1 in 4, something like that, in the construction industry, which is, that's such a high statistic. I remember I have a roommate that was telling me, a lot of the workers that he used to work with in the construction industry would call their spouses, whoever that is, just to speak to them before they go to work, because in certain types of jobs they didn't know if they would make it home that night. Imagine that type of stress all the time. For me, I would love to change how I feel by using a substance, if that's the way I felt all the time.
Yeah, definitely. So in construction, there's the big 5, right? You know about the big 5, Jason?
No.
Give us a
OSHA and
hint. Give us a
safety?
hint in what direction the big 5. Like, what are you referring to?
OSHA and safe. So the 5 deadly, safety things like.
I feel like I should get this because I have my OSHA 30.
More people die from substance use disorder and from suicide in the construction industry than the big 5 combined.
Okay.
Are you gonna let us guess the big 5?
I'm not a safety director. I'll Google
Me
it.
neither.
5 are.
That's why I'm like, why are you singling me out, man? Like,
Well, because
I'm an expert.
It's an OSHA thing. Aren't you certified in OSHA?
No. I'm a traffic control coordinator specialist. I'm not. Yeah, no. No OSHA.
Everyone
OSHA
in the
comes and
field
checks
for
my
us has
stuff.
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
I
in
don't
the
know.
field.
So what's the big five?
I'll tell you. Hold on just a second. Give me a minute.
I want to
Oh, you're
guess. I
looking
want
it
to
up.
guess.
Well, guess.
I have my
Let's
OSHA
guess.
30.
We'll guess and see who's
One
right.
of the five is going to be falls.
Yeah.
Falls. Probably electrocution. Maybe something to do with dehydration. 5.
Maybe get run over by a machine or get your head smashed with a beam. That's my 2 picks.
Oh, Michael Paddleford is saying power tool accidents.
Ooh.
I never heard of the big five. This would be.
This is why you shouldn't do construction and get high at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I agree with that.
What you got, Ashley? You got the big five?
Overexertion. It tops the list. 20% of all disabling injuries are from overexertion. So pulling, lifting, and carrying, pushing are all tasks that lead to overexertion. All right, we're not going to do all that. The next one, struck by objects. So windborne or falling debris or materials when equipment malfunctions during use. So that's number 2. Number
Thanks.
3 is falls from heights. So I think Brett said that. So ding, 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 or whoever said, I'm sorry.
I think Stephanie wrote a comment here.
Yep.
Trips, slips, and falls, being stuck by or caught in moving machinery, vehicle-related accidents, fire and explosions, repetitive stress, and you said overexertion. Thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie.
Vehicle. That should have been obvious.
So what were you saying again? More people die from what than all of this? Is it from substance
Use disorder and suicide.
Overdoses and suicides.
Then from tripping or
And
falling.
not just overdoses. So I mean, if it's like, cirrhosis of the liver, I'm sure that counts. But so, yeah, so more people die from substance use disorder and suicide in a year than from the big 5 combined.
That's
in the construction industry.
I mean, that's a really interesting point and really important point, so it kind of is important. So part of the work I do right now, I'm a consultant for the Colorado's first recovery friendly workplace initiative, where we are looking to help businesses become a workplace that really values and supports employees in recovery, whether they're struggling with addiction, trying to enter recovery, or they're in recovery, just trying to maintain their recovery. And, for the construction industry, if a lot of my workers are, struggling or because of substance use over these 5 things, that might be something I want to look at and really invest in the point is to keep my employees healthy and productive, because with healthy and productive employees, I, as the employer, benefit as well, right? Right? The company makes money, my employees are happy. That's good business. So it's really interesting that you brought out that point.
And they drive heavy machinery. Do you really want somebody that's...
No, that just goes without say there. Yeah.
So, I mean, safety-wise, it's, that's the greatest point for recovery-friendly workplaces in construction. It doesn't mean that you're saying it's okay to use drugs in the workplace. It doesn't mean that you're saying that you're not a drug-free workplace and recovery-friendly. It means that you notice the signs, you get people help, so that they're not in the workplace causing danger to themselves and others.
Right.
And you give them another chance, possibly, if that's in your policy, once they found recovery and once they're in a healthy, stable place, to reduce barriers later.
Right. Recovery-friendly workplace is not saying all your employees need to be sober. No, That's not what we're saying at all, because, as you guys probably already know, there's many pathways, to recovery, harm reduction, medicated assisted treatment, complete abstinence, whatever the case may be. And we're not saying that, your employees can't go out to happy hour if they want to go out or do whatever they do at home. But what we're saying is if there's a pattern of coming to work and there is unproductivity or disruption to the workplace because of substance use, well, this toolkit can help you figure out how do we keep the workplace productive? How do we keep our employees healthy?
Mm-hmm. Well, and plus, then they give people a chance. They sometimes will partner with organizations, treatments or follow up care facilities, sober homes or whatever the case may be, and offer jobs to people that are in early recovery to offer them a safe space where they can work, where they can feel understood and accepted, and where they can receive the supports that they need, not only in the real world, but when they're at work also. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would love to see peer services expand more into the workplace. Like if you have, say, Jason, you're in construction, you're in long-term recovery. If somebody that's looking for a job and newer in recovery, peering them up with you, you make a little bit more because you're a certified peer, but it's also, a benefit for that person because they know that they can talk to you. They also know, like say the group of work, coworkers is going out drinking. You might be going to a meeting or you might be going to the movies. You could invite that coworker to an activity so they don't feel triggered. It's also just, it's easier to do something when you're not alone. So the benefit of having somebody that's been through that to know how hard it is to start working again, to know, how to ask your boss for time off because you need to go, see whichever specialist, a therapist or, IOP, whatever the situation is, having someone that knows how to navigate that. And it's good business.
Yeah.
Really
Well, I think that would be awesome because the way I am, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I always, everybody knows that I'm in recovery and that I do this and that I do the Way Out podcast, and I do, everybody knows this stuff. So I already do give them peer support, you know what I mean, at work, and hard nuggets of truth sometimes. Let's be real. Some people think, oh, here's somebody that I can just like verbally diarrhea on all the time and then go and keep doing the same stupid shit that I do. And I'll be like, look, I'm not going to sit right on the sideline and watch you do this to yourself and have to like experience it all with you all the time if you're not trying to like change anything. But I've rarely have to say that because typically they either realize that like they are not ready to change and then they stop coming to me for advice or for support, or they fucking find the support helpful and they start making actions towards meaningful change, but I do that anyway. So if I could get a pay hike for that and have a cool sounding title, that'd be sweet.
about seeds. We talk about planting seeds all the time and it might not, catch the first time. Think about if we had peers in every industry, in the police stations, in the corrections, in schools, in the doctor's offices, in the hospitals. If we had people with lived experience helping other people with lived experience, like we wouldn't be in the situation in this country that we're in right now.
Right.
We don't have a system that's built for recovery. And unfortunately, just going back to school, I realized that, there's business school. Everyone goes out drinking. If you're in recovery, like it's a hard, thing to find. Even the workplace is hard for recovery. There's alcohol at almost all corporate events, and that's fine. But some people it's really triggering for, and it's also hard to, I think, hey, you can have my drink ticket when we go to the expo, and I'll be the DD. Like I would think I'd be a fun guest, but I'm not really that fun first. They would rather somebody do it with them. So that makes it hard.
Yeah. What you're mentioning about lived experience, it's funny because I also wrote a book, called Leading Workplace Addiction. And it's also the base text for the nonprofit. You have it right there. Yes, the nonprofit that I founded, Recovery Friendly Leader. And one of the strategies that I talk about in the book is how leaders are utilizing lived experience as a resource that they can use to support these employees in recovery. You know, there's so many people who have this experience of what it's like already, and they're so willing to share it, and they're willing to do it for free as well, right? Use it. It is valuable information. You know, I found that many managers are a lot of people who are not in recovery and are managers are just relating to some of their employees through struggles of life, you know, sharing what it's like to struggle as a single mother, for example, or maybe with some other type of mental disorder or physical disorder, and just what they did to navigate through that. Or they're actually asking peer support specialists or people with lived experience in recovery, hey, I have this employee, you know, keeping some anonymity and confidentiality, obviously, but what did you do, right? Can you help me learn what I can do to help this employee, because you have the experience, you know, about what it's someone who's been through it before. I mean, there's really no replacement for that when you're trying to connect with someone.
Yeah.
And being vulnerable is like the biggest leadership skill they're teaching right now. And, you know, so I guess we can transition that into, I remember when I first started talking to you about your book, there was, you know, when you shared your story and you said you were nervous about it because it was really the first time you had like publicly shared it.
Mm-hmm.
How has that been for you, and how do you feel now? It's been a couple months.
Oh, I'm still nervous. Yeah, I'm still nervous, but you know, I think uh, I'm getting a little more used to it. You know, just sharing this is who I am. It's funny, you know, it used to be sharing with strangers was easy for me. You know, I would just shut off my feelings and vomit whatever honesty and tell you anything because I would never have to see you again. But you know, having my family back in my life now after
Yeah.
doing some of this work and
Yes.
and rebuilding relationships that I've broken before and still doing it today,
Yeah.
there is a new meaning to vulnerability, and being able to share that with them, and they actually heard me, right? And they're not judging me by it anymore. They're listening. They're just they're hearing what I'm saying. I mean, it's it's a feeling that, number one, I never thought I deserved or could ever get, but um I think that was the most amazing part of sharing my story, is sharing it with my family.
Amen,
I
brother.
mean, they've
Amen.
seen it, you know, they've been through it, but be able to say it to them and look in their eyes, it's just completely different.
Well, yeah, because when they seen it they didn't understand, what was going on with you. And even if you tried to explain it when you were in your active addiction, it would have been weird in its in the way that it came out. It would have came out sideways or whatever, or
Hmm.
with excuses or justifications, or talk to them from the healed side of your perspective, where you've already worked through that shit and you can see it, the reality of it, not your, you wouldn't be telling them from, behind your mask, so to speak. So, dude,
Hmm.
it's a beautiful thing, brother, and I'm proud of you, man. And I think I need to buy a stack of your books for all the supervisory team because, dude, I work for like a nationwide multi-billion-dollar corporation. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
they have offices all over the country and stuff, and it would be cool to plant. Maybe I could plant a seed with the upper management in Minnesota, and that could spread across the nation.
You want some
Planet,
stats? I
I'd
can
love
send you
that.
some stats that will
I'd
So,
support them buying it.
hell yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'd love it. All the proceeds from this book, by the way, go directly to fund the nonprofit, and the nonprofit is the training program for the book. So the more people that buy this book, the more I'm able to actually deliver
Teach
this
it.
training to managers and supervisors.
Wow.
And the more funding I get, the more I can offer it at a low cost.
Well, and you know what I heard,
That's awesome.
by what you said, and I just want to point this out before I forget. Like, as you were describing how telling your story and your family reacting, like the word that came to mind is belong. Like, you felt like you belonged. Like, and I know, like me personally, I always struggled with not feeling like I fit in, and and it's like finally we're able to tell our truth and just be who we are, imperfect, and fit in and belong, and that's so important in life, to feel included and like you have a place. And I think that feeling is something anyone can identify with, whether they have a substance use disorder or not. Everyone wants to belong.
Yeah. I mean, just it's saying that statement, I belong. I mean, that's such a strong statement. It takes some real grounded understanding to be able to sit in that statement and actually live in that statement. You know, I've had moments where, okay, I know that's true, but no is up here, right? For it to be in here, man, it takes a lot of work, and I'm still working on it. Today I was at an event for Recovery Friendly Workplace, and what's the first thought? I don't belong here. What do you mean you don't belong? But that's where I go to still today. It's just it's something I still work on every single day. I belong.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Me feel like I belong. Like the other day, it's just this weird thing. So I've been advocating for, for an RCO to start giving their employees a 401k, and everybody's thought I was like ridiculous. Like, they need more money, they need a bonus, and I'm like, and they didn't think that I understood, and I'm like, I guess they thought I forgot like where I came from, and I'm like, do you realize that when you're in recovery, like there's legal fees, or there's you haven't planned, you didn't plan to live this long, you didn't plan to live a life like this.
No.
The fact you have a 401k is exciting. It doesn't matter if it's got $10,000 or $5. It's sometimes it's people's first time having a 401k. Like, that's more exciting than $1,000 in bank account. You're planning for retirement. You're planning to be alive to retire. It's a self-esteem thing. So they're like,
awesome.
And then when I said that, they stopped and they're like, you're right, you do get it. Like, we thought you were just trying to be like bougie businessy, and they're like, you were actually really trying to advocate for what would help build self-esteem. And I'm like, yeah. So it made me feel like, because normally you get pushback, and they treated me kind of like, you really want us, we're a tiny organization, you really want us to do 401ks. Like, and then they had like a financial planner come and talk to their program for moms, and the moms were like so interested, and that's when they started like listening to, well, maybe 401k is a good idea, because these single moms were very interested. Well, I don't know if they're the moms in recovery, because we're so interested in financial planning. And I'm like, yeah, it's exciting to be able to plan for the future and to have hopes and dreams. Like, that is so big for self-confidence.
Right.
It is, like, to plan for your future, to plan to be alive, right? That's what you're doing. You're planning to stay alive. Like, so I belong, right? Comes from,
love it,
right? A whole lifetime, prior lifetime of I don't belong, right? I am not loved. And what am I doing through my addiction? I'm reinforcing that statement, right? And seeking, how can I just continue to show myself that that's true, right? And eventually that just leads to death and wanting to die, right? Wanting to show myself that I'm just not worthy of this life. So to now have moments, right, to feel like you belong. Well, first it started with finding someone else who also feels like they don't belong, right? Because if I'm not relating with someone in that level, then that's also telling me I don't fit in, because no one else feels like this, right? It's just me. So finding someone else that also felt that way once before, really, and then planning my future, it just not only sets in some life, but some gratitude of what it's like to live. I've never knew gratitude until, honestly, until all those negative things. I lived in those things. Today, like when some good things happen, it definitely makes me pause for a second and be like, wow, thank you, because I know what it's like now not to have that, and I know that could be taken away any second.
And how do you feel too if you like hear somebody else like say, I'm advocating for you to have a 401k? Like, I believe that you're going to be in recovery too to retire. And I believe that, you're, that, and you're worth more than just a bonus is great, but that's a short term thing, like for, you can match, you can do all kinds of stuff. It's like, I believe in you enough to want to fight for you to have that. Like, that's the gift to give to somebody else too. And we don't always think about that stuff.
Right. Right.
Right.
Ooh, you're gonna make me cry now too.
That's all right, man. It's welcomed here.
So tell me more about your book. What's your favorite part?
My favorite part about my book is in my story, my family and I were on a cruise, and we love food, and we went to go eat, I think at the dine-in, like the sit-down dinner, and my uncle and I wanted to see if the buffet upstairs had anything different, so we went upstairs and we ate more after everybody else. That's my favorite part of the book, just that little part of my story.
I liked the part where you talked about like behaviors and normal behaviors versus, like, and how how you've had all of the behaviors, like increased unreliability, fatigue, faster burnouts, spurts of crying. Like, I think.
Oh, you're talking about, okay, yes. It's a strategy called recognizing relapse warning signs, and I was researching like what are the warning signs that people say that people with addiction have. And when I was reading them, in my head, I'm going, yep, I did that, I did that, I did that. So I figured if I'm going to write it in the book, I might as well put the ones I actually did, which was all of them, by the way. And just really explain, like, while these are common warning signs, like, the fatigue, showing up to work late, or not being as productive, that's kind of general, right? Anybody can really exhibit those behaviors. But what we're looking for here is this a pattern? And is this different from this employee's normal behavior? Like, is he normally happy? Like, I'm normally smiling at work, right? I'm normally on time or early. I can be too talkative, right? But if I start to show up late, I'm really short, and it's not just a day, it's becoming a pattern. Well, that might warrant, a check-in. Is something going on? And then the conversation can go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's so important that different things are different for everybody, and different times it's different. I mean, like somebody asked me once, I drink every night, like, and I've been drinking, and do I have a problem? And I'm like, that's not really for me to say. Like, I don't know if, like, maybe if you have a problem where you're doing it for as a reaction, or you need to do it to go to sleep, or you are grumpy if you don't do it, or there's some kind of, then maybe it's something you need to look into. But like, there's normal looks different for everybody, and okay looks different for everybody, and the only person that knows is you, and being honest with yourself. But if you're vulnerable enough to ask the question, then maybe it's something to look at too.
Yeah, one of the like golden rules I was taught early in recovery is that addict or an alcoholic or anybody who's addicted to any behavior, they can only self-identify. You can't go and tell them that they're a porn addict or whatever.
Right.
They have to have that moment of clarity and realize that it's an issue. You know what I mean?
Right. And and you both are talking about two other strategies that I mentioned in my book. First one is meeting employees where they are, because every person is different. As
Mm-hmm.
you were just saying, every situation is different. What one employee may need in a given situation may not be what this employee needs in a given situation, right? And if we're going to have a conversation about something that you suspect, right, is going on, well, I talk about a strategy called constructive confrontation. It's an EAP term, but what it's saying is it's a conversation about, and it stays strictly on the workplace performance and workplace behavior. We're not accusing anyone of an addiction here. What we're doing is documenting what is happening to your job performance or your behaviors at work, and we're going to bring those up in a discussion. We're going to explain what happens if you continue the poor performance, right? And we're going to try and come up with a plan for how to improve your performance. We're going to suggest that maybe you seek out some assistance if you need it through an EAP. And
Right.
then we're going to leave it up to you, the employee, to either, you know, just agree and take the criticism and move on, or use it as a platform to admit, I have something else going on. Because if you admit, well, that opens the door
Mm.
for some understanding and maybe some accommodations that you may not have if you just stay closed.
So if somebody's an employee, current or otherwise, maybe they're about to be hired on to a recovery friendly workplace, is one of the things, I'm just curious if this is one of the things you do, but do you have people fill out sort of like a recovery, like a relapse prevention plan type of form where they can basically tell you warning signs that they know about themselves? Like, when I'm using, you'll notice this and this and this, so that they can kind of uh hold themselves accountable in that way, where it would be easier for the leadership to spot it if there was something going on.
That's really up to the workplace, what the workplace will allow with the policy, and what really the managers come up with themselves of how they want to go about it. I do talk about establishing some boundaries in my book, right? We let treatment providers, focus on treatment, and we, as managers in the workplace, focus on what we need to in the workplace, which is performance and workplace behaviors. Um, Anything beyond, really in the gray areas, we kind of have to assess: does it stay here at work, or do you need to talk about it maybe with your sponsor
Right.
or with your therapist? We don't want to cross too many lines for a lot of different reasons.
Well, I would assume that if it's, somebody's coming into a recovery workplace, that they, you know, that it's known that they're like in recovery.
Hmm.
And so, like, if they are choosing to work there because it's recovery friendly, that would be like a form that they would fill out when they're completely of sound mind and when they're not messing up. Just like, hey, this is part of what this is. Like, this is a supportive environment for me to work in, where people can recognize, if things are going on with me and they're willing to help, or I can call myself out. But see, that's the thing: when we slip, we ain't trying to call ourselves out for shit, so, but like, when we take that job, we're
Uh-huh.
more than happy to fill out a form that tells you what kind of weird shit to look out for,
Hmm.
and that, thinking that it's never going to happen. But then if it does happen,
Hmm.
now you're armed with this, because so many people are so different, maybe be it their substances or their quirks or whatever, the weird shit that they do when they get
Right.
under
So
the influence.
there's some things. Let me break it down a little bit. So even though recovery, there's recovery friendly workplaces and recovery supportive workplaces, there's two, but there's also, they still have the same requirements as a typical job. Like,
Hmm.
and substance use disorder is a disability according to the ADA. So if it's affected your daily function, like there's specifications, and you really can't require. The only thing is if there's a program like a reentry program, or there's like you're getting the job like maybe if there was a peer partnership where like between, say, drug court and something where you don't have penalties if you start, like there can be specifications that way. But as far as an employer, just, you know, that's putting additional expectations on someone that's actually like really highly illegal. But you can teach, you know, like if there's a program, you know, you teach rap and you teach them how to use it in the workplace, and you teach someone that that's a prevention tool to do it when you're your right frame of mind, and give it to somebody within your organization that you trust. It doesn't have to be the boss. It doesn't have to be HR. It can be, you know, the person 2 cubicles over that has a son that struggled, and
somebody else that's in the recovery part of it. Yeah. Because I wasn't thinking either that it would be like, I thought it would be a good idea in my head, but I was thinking like more on like a, like a volunteer basis. Like you're not required to give us this information, but if it would make you feel safer,
But what those do too is that's when you're in a crisis and you're in the workplace, sometimes they have to do things to make it safe for everybody else and also to be safe for you. But when you do it in your right mind, you tell them how you want it done. If you get in that crisis, it doesn't mean they have to avoid it. It's, I if I do this, this, and this, I need you to suspend me, or I need you to tell me I can't come because or if I do this and this, I need you to ask me what's going on because the next step is this, this, and this. Or if I break the rule, I need you to call the police because that's what I need you to do so that I know you're going to do that. Or if I break the rule and I need to go to treatment, please don't cancel my insurance. Let me go to treatment, but I understand I won't have a job. Like it looks different, but so we have to be, understanding that workplaces also are businesses and they have to be safe and they have to be. So there's both of those.
Yeah, Jason, like to what you're saying, you're asking if the employee can come to work and disclose basically about their addiction and signs to look out for. Employees can really disclose anything they want at their own discretion, on a voluntary basis, as you're saying. The recovery-friendly workplace is not by any means going to require it, right? For a lot of the reasons that Ash is saying. But when an employee does disclose certain information, in my book, I talk about learning when to set those boundaries that, okay, I can help you with this, but this you actually need to go seek help from an EAP, or you need to go talk to HR about that, because I can't help you there for many reasons. Confidentiality, number one, right? HIPAA, another reason. There are many reasons that go into why certain things can't be talked about in the workplace. But yeah, an employee is always free to disclose anything at their own discretion.
Yeah, like for the sole purpose of making it recognizable so that it can be caught quicker, and then obviously you need to go to treatment or you need to go figure your shit out, straighten yourself out,
Right. I know that when I was working, I remember telling my boss, hey, when my ego starts to get inflated, that's a sign. So look out for that. But if that was my norm, like what was she looking out for? So
that's
very good.
Part of being recovery friendly is that it doesn't, like I said before, it doesn't mean that you'll accept behaviors in the workplace, but it means that you won't cut off their insurance so they don't get treatment. It means if you see the signs, you offer them the option to go and take a month off medical leave to go get treatment and come back before anybody notices anything. It's like, I mean, I see it all the time. There's doctors and nurses that are in active addiction and they can't disclose and they can't take the time off to get treatment. And some of them know that it's going to either they're going to lose their license eventually because they're doing the work not in the best frame of mind, or they can disclose and lose their license that they worked forever for. And it's an impossible situation. And so recovery friendly is really about not putting people in that situation.
Gotcha.
Right. I want to clarify one thing too. So Recovery Friendly Workplace is a project, a statewide project that I'm working on, that is setting up the workplaces, right, to become recovery friendly. The training program that I'm developing with the nonprofit. It's called Recovery Friendly Leader, right? And what it's doing is, so the Recovery Friendly Workplace says that, hey, you can have the workplace that values and supports these employees in recovery. The nonprofit program, Recovery Friendly Leader, goes to the managers and supervisors and says, now that the workplace says you can, this is how you can, right? We take it to an advanced level. Like, okay, so you work in a place that really has a culture of diversity, equity, inclusion. So what Recovery Friendly Leader does is we go to the manager and supervisor and says, how are you exhibiting diversity, equity, inclusion? Are you soliciting for their feedback, right? From all your employees, including the ones in recovery. Are you valuing the opinions and the contributions that they bring to the team, right? Are you refraining from stigmatizing language, right? So Recovery Friendly Leader is really looking to get deeper into the managerial, the supervisor level, and really show them that, okay, the workplace says we have DEI. Are you leading that by example as well? So I'm really excited to, we're officially a 501c3 now, and
Awesome.
we
Congratulations.
are, still developing what this program is going to look like so we can deliver it to as many people as possible and really help many, many employees. What regularly makes me excited about it is there's so many programs that are dedicated to the employee in recovery, right?
Right.
So we're helping employees in recovery directly, but this program is getting it from 360 degrees now. So now the employees are getting help. We're going to help you the other way through your managers and supervisors in the workplace now, right? So you're going to get
Equip them to
support
be better.
all around. There should be no reason why you can't just walk into recovery and stay in that path.
Yeah.
And
And
maybe we
hopefully
change the
soon.
conversation. Like, I'm a person in long-term recovery. What are you in recovery for? Everybody's in recovery from something.
Right.
So if you build leaders that are inclusive about recovery, maybe the conversation doesn't single us out. Maybe being in recovery is how we belong.
Right. Right.
And
Everybody's
hopefully
working
it'll
on
be a
something.
nationwide thing soon, man, not just a statewide thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a hard state. You have a hard state because of all the, it's like there's a lot of because of the legislative changes, which, like great, but it makes policies for workplaces hard. It makes the lines blurry. So it's really brave that you're, doing it in that state, and commendable.
The Attorney General of Colorado actually just a few weeks ago, I believe, has given his stamp of approval for these recovery-friendly workplace initiatives that we're trying to give off. In fact, I think the White House in July sent out a press that they're encouraging more states to start their own recovery-friendly workplace initiative. So it's pretty cool to have the government's eye on this and backing us up.
And guess who's going to be the one that they want to teach these other people who want to do it there, John?
The person starting the programs.
This guy.
People in recovery based on
awesome.
presenteeism. How many? Does anybody know the stat on versus the normal employee? How many less days of work they miss than the typical employee?
It's a lot. I guarantee it's a lot.
I wrote it and I forgot. I think it's like 50 something. I don't know.
No, it went in 1 year.
Yeah,
I know it's 26.5, I believe, was the actual work days.
Oh, see, I thought it was 12 a year versus no. So when you're in recovery, they miss 12 less days in a year than the typical employee. So they're actually at work more than a normal employee that hasn't had any struggles, which is a pretty great fact.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of interesting facts. Like it's, I think, about 40% less in healthcare than an employee in recovery costs, right? You just mentioned the work days.
Productivity increases are tremendous.
Yeah. In 2020.
We got a lot of time to make up for you guys.
Well, you know what it's like to lose your life, and you don't want to lose that again. So you're very plus you're not a lot of people aren't hangovers. There's not like maybe not the nightlife that you used to have. You're not out as late, so you don't miss, or it's just like, hey, I'm planning a vacation. I've never taken a long vacation before. Let me not miss work so I can save for that, or let me not miss work so I still have a job. Like, it's just, there's a lot of reasons, but they're great stats when you're trying to talk to workplaces.
Yeah, one of the one big stat for here in Colorado is they've seen an increase in the appropriate use for personal time off. That's not calling out sick the day of or whatever. People actually putting in PTO and getting it approved ahead of time.
Wow.
That's a big change. Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah. I've been telling the truth about why you're off too, instead of lying, like, and building a culture. Oh, I'm hungover, I don't feel like it, I'm sick. Like, you build a culture, like, you're telling the truth, like, you really are sick when you're sick, or or I'm taking care of this because I have this struggle, sorry, like, I need to take care of this so I can be good for tomorrow. I mean, it's just building a culture of honesty too.
Right. Integrity is super important in recovery. And then also, it's like that whole concept of like impulsivity, like we have impulse control problems, but in recovery, we learn how to like recognize that stuff and control it better. So we're not making those spur of the moment random ass decisions to not go in and make up some story because it's got to look better, because they never go for my real reason. Now that shit, that's old behavior, and we know that now, so we got to try to get away from it.
Yeah. Recovery for any leader really starts with 3 concepts first. I go through the first one is, do you understand as a leader that all employees in a company have basic needs, okay, including those in recovery? And are you willing to meet those needs because you understand it really sets your employees up for success? Okay, the second one is, am I as a leader, to go off what you were saying, Jason, do I have emotional intelligence? Do I understand that I have emotions as well? And am I able to regulate them, right? To manage them, to control my impulses so that I can have really best decision practices and attitudes at the workplace. And the third one is, do I work in a workplace that will support me in supporting these employees, the recovery friendly workplace, right? The answer has to be yes to all 3 in order for any strategy that you're going to try to apply to supporting these employees for them to work, right? Leading by example is a strategy that I talk about, because if I don't know as a leader how to manage my own emotions, if I get angry too easily, if I don't handle conflict well, right? How am I expected to help someone who's struggling with the same thing in their active addiction? Right? How am I capable if I'm not capable myself? So I talk about that a lot.
It's really important, man.
Do you talk about how to have open conversations about stuff and hard, how to handle the hard, uncomfortable, I mean, is the best way to say it.
Yeah, and there's a strategy called building a personal connection through vulnerability, right? So one thing in my recovery, right, as you were talking earlier, Ashley, is vulnerability, right? Learning to be vulnerable again, because that's how I get helped. So can we really expect to tell our employees, be vulnerable with me? You can tell me anything, and them do it? Like, can they really trust that they can? Especially if you don't handle conversations well, right? If you don't manage conflict well, if someone's vulnerable with you, do you think they ever will be again? These are hard things to think about, but we need to think about them if we really want to do this work. So if I, as a leader, show them that it's okay, and how do I show them? By doing it first, right? I can encourage these vulnerable and honest conversations by showing them how it's done and doing it first, right? And that may take some time, but eventually they might pick up on it and trust And when they trust that they can do that, they'll trust any guidance that you can give.
And I think, have you heard like the Brene Brown podcast about like vulnerability? Like a lot of people misunderstand what vulnerability, and especially vulnerability in the workplace, is. Being vulnerable isn't unprofessional. It doesn't mean oversharing. Like, what does it mean to you about vulnerability in the workplace? Like how, like, can you give an example of?
Yeah. Hey, Ashley, can I talk to you for a second? You know, I didn't come into work on Monday. I know I told you I was sick, but I'm an alcoholic, and that's why. That, you know how much courage that takes to just do that sentence? That was one of my conversations were like with one of my bosses. And the thing about that conversation is I even lied in that conversation because I wasn't drinking, but I was afraid to say addict because would I lose my job? Like, what questions would you ask? So the vulnerability it takes for someone to admit that they're struggling with a problem, the courage and the strength it takes to do that, it's so much. But if we let them know that it's okay, right, through engaging in these programs, right, that the state is trying to give, the recovery friendly workplace, this nonprofit program, recovery friendly leader, right, we can demonstrate to our employees that it's okay. We can have policies that not only talk about what happens if you use a substance at work, but what are the protections you get if you need help, right? And we can use words that are inclusive, right? DEI, we're talking about words that are inclusive. Addiction is an inclusive word. So it's definitely vulnerability in the workplace is hard. It's also tricky because you're not there to give the whole kitchen sink of your life, right? But there are certain things that you need to be able to admit at work if you want to be helped
And you
and keep
talked
your job.
about needs and everybody having needs, and psychological safety is a need that everyone needs to feel safe physically and psychologically, and building a culture of safety is good business too, because I mean it really is. You have more honest employees, you have more productive employees. Even as a leader, just being like, I need to take off of work, I'm burnt out, and I've been drinking to handle my stress, and I really need to just take today off combined with the weekend so I can come back and be fresh. Like that's professional, and that's being honest, and vulnerable at the same time, and being a good leader.
How many people can relate, right, to that statement you just said? I'm feeling burnt out, I need a mental health day, right? That's not specific to people in recovery, right? That's for everyone. So what I'm trying to do as well is really hopefully put an awareness out there that these strategies, they're really applicable to anyone. Someone needing a day off because they're burnt out or stressed out is anybody, right? All we're doing here is highlighting how it can benefit those in recovery and how you will benefit when they benefit. That's all we're doing.
And I think it's great hearing like stories. Like we at Mobilize, we heard a panel, and Jason he was there. They talked about how it improved morale for everybody, not just those in their in recovery in the workplace. It was literally like helped the whole workplace.
It changed the culture. Yeah. Like it changed the entire culture of the organization from the top to the bottom, and people were more connected as a result. That was a cool panel. I was like, that's an awesome idea. Just like I thought it was such an awesome idea when I heard about like recovery high schools and stuff, like recovery schools and stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, I really want one state to be the first state to give tax. I want it to be Florida, but we'll see. The first state to give tax benefits to businesses that are recovery friendly, and just do the educational. They don't even have to hire anyone in recovery. Just the educational piece is huge. But
So that way they could give them some funds, and then they could hire John to come and train their supervisory staff.
So New York and I believe New Jersey are doing that right now. The tax credits for
cities,
becoming.
there's
Huh?
not a state yet that has it statewide. New York City is doing it, but not New York State. And
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, as of the last I knew, and that was a couple months ago, that there was no states that were the whole state was giving it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
You know, it'd be really
that's
cool
benefits
if
to
you can
business.
get them to do maybe stipends or scholarships or awards instead of a tax credit, because then municipalities and nonprofits that want to take part can benefit as well.
Or subsidizing pay too, like, you know, and there's also like protections if you hire vulnerable population that like the government will bond you. So it really is not a risk, though, you know, to do it. But like, say you're a small business and you hire somebody in recovery and you can only pay, say you're, you know, it's a mechanic, you pay $10 and the state pays $10 of their salary, so you can hire them and take that risk because you're not absorbing as much of a cost as if you, but it benefits them because they can get back into the workplace and make, you know, they still make a decent wage. So doing it that way too is beneficial to both.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many benefits that the workplace can get, and you know, having a tax credit is great. I just want to be sure that the focus is really on just you have a good business when your greatest asset, which is your employees that make up the business, are just healthy and productive, right? So if that's your main focus, then enjoying these other benefits that come on with it it's just awesome.
It'll just be a natural byproduct, honestly, if you're making sure that
great word for it, byproduct. Yeah.
Everybody's needs are taken care of and that they're supported and healthy and they're more productive then, and then you make more money. You know, it's just a natural byproduct.
Yeah.
So there's a company, and I was talking to someone tonight. It's a big company and they've been very, very prominent about recovery. They have policies in place to help employees, and they have advocates. They've been very like worried about coming out as a recovery friendly workplace because there's stigma and there's worry. And so sometimes if you're on the fence where you do believe in something but you're worried about your public perception, having that little financial benefit, you know, even if you pretend you're only doing it for the financial benefit, like it still helps, you know. And even if you have stigma and you don't believe in it, but you make money off of it, eventually you will believe in it if you listen and really absorb it. And sometimes it's getting in the door. Like I wish everyone had the heart you have and, you know, was willing to have that culture. And there's a lot of businesses that do have that culture, but there's a lot that are cutthroat and it's all about money. And you have to change their minds through them. You have to go in the money way and then change their hearts and minds.
Right. Because until they run the experiment, they won't see it. You know, they won't have that like practical experience with it and that tangible evidence in front of them and around them all the time that says, hey, wow, this has really changed the way these people interact with each other. This has really changed the money flowing in here. All these different things are changing for the better, right? But they got to step through fear. You know, it's just like us when we want to get clean. We got to step through fear and try to do something we didn't do before. You know, that's hard.
Let me use the example with your book. It's my last, you know, well, I'm just going to say $20. It's not, I mean, I have my last $20 and you want me to invest in this book because it's going to change my life. And it's my last $20 and I don't know, you know, it's really scary for me. That's everything I have. But if you tell me, hey, I'm going to give you a discount and you only need to invest $3 in this book, just give me $3 and you can still have 17. Like, I'm more likely to take the book and read it and be like, I would have given all my $20 because I believe in that. But it's scary at the beginning.
Yeah. So my hope is that just I continue spreading this message to as many leaders as possible, that the nonprofit gets up and running soon, and that we can really just help many employees who are just like me, struggling to figure out, how do I get sober and keep my job? Should I leave my job? You know, I remember talking to someone and them suggesting, shouldn't your focus be to retain as many employees as possible? And that was a good suggestion. I sat on that for a while, and we don't want turnover, of course, right? But I had to stick to the purpose. And what's the purpose? To give employees the opportunity to enter recovery so that the business as well can stay healthy and productive. We want healthy and productive organizations, right, as a whole. And sometimes that means that putting recovery first might mean not working right now. And sometimes not working right now is better for the business. Obviously, that is not the first go-to. That's not what we want. But we really want to focus on just how to really help overall and not eliminate what that help could look like for either the employee or the business, right? And these are hard choices to make sometimes.
I didn't
Very
work
hard
my
choices.
first year in recovery.
Huh?
I didn't work my first year in recovery, just in case anybody ever needs to know if.
Oh, me either. I'm right there with you. Yeah,
Same.
me either.
I think it was a little over a year for me. And then I got a good job framing. And then I still had the case, so it was like not done yet. And then I couldn't get representation because I made too much money. So I had to quit my framing job and go back to being unemployed for like another 6 months until my case was completed and sentencing was done. And then I was able to go back to work because I got blessed with another chance by the judge. But I was like, holy shit, I couldn't believe it. I was super like prepared to go to prison. I thought I was going for sure.
So since we all do probably have to work tomorrow, as well, like speaking of that, if somebody believes in what you're saying and believes in your book, where can they donate? How can they learn more, and where can they buy it, and how can they support what you're doing?
It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, or the publisher directly. I don't know how to. Will you post a link to my website? It's right there. Yeah. If you go to my website, drjnarine.wordpress.com, I have a page just for my book and has links to where you can buy it. There's also a link that will take you directly to the nonprofit, Recovery Friendly Leader, where you could learn more about our mission and how we plan to achieve our mission. So I'm super excited that I was able
And
to
you
come here
could support the nonprofit if you so choose on that link.
That page is coming up soon. I will have no, there's a way to contact me if you would like to support the nonprofit.
There's always a way. If there's a will, there's a way.
Yes. Yes.
Even if it's just referring the training to another business.
Yes.
Like in Colorado, say you're in that area, like if you believe in this, get the training take the training as a leader, get it in your workplace, refer it to your friends, talk about it at 1 Million Cups, or talk about it at Rotary lunch, or whatever you do, talk about it, and that's support.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What's up, Brett?
And to also make it easier for people to find the book, I linked it. If you're on the Recovery Revolution Facebook page, if you click on the shop tab, the book is linked there as well.
Very nice.
Thank you, Brett.
And even if you're not a leader in your workplace right now, get the book and prepare, because everybody's a leader in their workplace.
Yeah, buy a stack for upper management. That's what I'm going to do.
If you have, I'll wrap it up, but if you have one tip for a leader seeking a solution, what would you tell them right now?
If I had one tip for a leader seeking a solution, just keep an open mind. That's my one tip. It is so easy to know what the issue is and come up with the answer myself, or discredit what the answer might be. Sometimes the answer is not what you think it is. it's not comfortable, and it's completely different to what you believe. Okay, and just
most of the time.
And as a leader, it hurts to watch your people hurt. So, you know, like,
It does.
you know, it's a hard place to be. So, you know, keeping an open mind's hard.
Let me tell you this. How I'm staying sober today is by doing things that I don't believe should be done sometimes, and that I don't think makes sense sometimes.
Ding.
But I do it anyway, and I'm sober right now.
Dude, John, you're awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on here, and I really believe in the work you're doing, man. I'll be praying for you and for your nonprofit.
Thank you.
I really hope that it is blessed and it just spreads, and you're able to really help a lot of people grow in their leadership.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming. And let's get excited about Recovery Month. Maybe that'll be a big month for businesses and leaders.
September.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah,
Coming
absolutely.
up.
Thank you guys so much for having me on today and to really just spread this message. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome meeting you, man. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Narine.
You guys
Thank
too.
you so much.
All right, let's do the wrap-up stuff.
It's your time to shine, Brett.
It is my time to shine. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications so you know when we're live. If you guys haven't figured it out yet, it's every Thursday night. If you guys would like to send us a message, because we don't like this being a one-sided conversation, we like to hear from you guys as well. You can leave us a voice message at the address on your screen, speak-2.us/RRL. I still haven't set up those other graphics, but Jason, you have a podcast. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the Way Out podcast. We got like 306 or 307 episodes. I'm really proud of the content that we put out. You hear some great recovery stories and get some hope, and then we even have topic episodes that we just unpack important topics, common stumbling blocks, and things like that, and really try to make them more understandable for people. So I think it's good practical information that we're putting out there. I hope you like it.
Nice. And Michael Paddleford there in the comments also just commented that he has a new episode of Recover Loud coming out for International Overdose Awareness Day, so be sure to check that out as well.
Right on.
I also do a recovery podcast. I feel like everybody does one. Actually, when are you going to start your recovery podcast?
Yeah.
I'm not.
You ain't cool unless you have a recovery podcast.
Do it. I also do a recovery podcast called Recovery Survey. I release an episode every Wednesday. Not quite as many episodes as Jason just yet, but episode 126 just came out yesterday, so check that out wherever you find your podcasts. And if you guys are into podcasts and you want to take Recovery Revolution live with you on the road, we also release the audio version of our interviews. So check that out on your favorite podcast player and subscribe to us there. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, all the major players. Man,
I don't know why that was funny.
What, Ashley's comments in the private chat?
No,
I when you
screen. I don't know. Just when you said all the major players, I chuckled at that. Like it was.
John needs a podcast for an interview leaders.
Yeah.
Yes. Do
Dude,
it.
look at that. Boom.
Do it.
That'll be next to my agenda.
Don't worry, if you stay around long enough, JR will give you lots of jobs and to-do lists.
Okay.
It is true.
And I'm running out of music. Oh no.
Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah,
Remember,
you guys,
Sleep well tonight.
And remember, progress, not
not
perfection.
perfection.
All right, guys, we'll see you next Thursday.